What's up, guys? It's your boys Wilkie back out with some more of the Chris Watts videos. But actually, today is centralized. Well, I wouldn't say centralized. I would say more of the do's and don'ts of DA Rourke. Now, again, I can't speculate because I am not the professional. All I'm doing this is for entertainment and educational purposes. Again, I am not professional. But there are thousands, if not millions, of people that show or have stated that pretty much this case was closed way too fast, which I am one of them. I think this case could have been looked at a lot longer, from the time from conviction to interview to interrogation to conviction to an arrest. Like, it just went so fast. Like, there was no time to look at evidence and time to look at things and so forth. And the funny thing is this was all done and said, signed, sealed, delivered by November. The murders took place in August. And the funny thing was it was an election year. Somebody have made a statement or what have you that pretty much that, how they state it, that Chris Watts was accused and convicted on a theory. That's not justice, which is I definitely highly state 100% agreement with. The DA needed to prove it and did not. And this is why this case is so intriguing to so many people, is because he put a little tight little bow on this to present to people to make it look like it was good. I'm not saying that Chris is innocent. Don't get me that wrong. This man, or Chris, is 100% guilty. But is he guilty of everything? Do we know for a fact? They say they do, but they didn't literally go over like detailed when it comes to pictures and diagrams and DNA and stuff like that. They say they've collected it. They say that all of it was collected, but it wasn't put forth in his conviction or his confession or his trial. It wasn't even a trial. It was just the court appearance for his sentencing. This case didn't go to trial, which is unfortunate. He did go on to a podcast, the only podcast that he's ever gone on to, which was his wife's. He would not go on to any other one because he didn't want to discuss it, but he went on to his wife's. Shocker. There was videos that were put out of Behind Criminal Minds, Plunder, which we're about to watch here, because you guys have been wanting me to watch this one from Plunder. That literally show that he keeps stating that Nichol Kessinger wasn't there that morning. Why is he so adamant to state that? Like, he keeps saying it's not a witch hunt and stuff like that. But it's just the fact that it's like he doesn't want to look at her. Like, is it going to cause you that much money to interview her or to interrogate her properly? So, with that being said, before we go any further, if you guys could do me a solid favor on my channel and Plunder's channel, is subscribe to our channels by hitting the white bar icon down at the bottom right. Hit that bell icon next to it so when I do post videos like this one, you guys will get that little ring notification that I've posted that video. And then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, I thank you so very much for the love and support that you guys have continuously shown. I surely appreciate every single one of you. And I bet Plunder does as well. This lady is definitely very sincere, definitely knows her stuff, knows religion like no other, and so forth. And I definitely value her opinion when it comes to her findings. Now, thousands of you guys have been throwing me this information to this channel, to this video. So we're gonna watch it. Titled, District Attorney Michael Rourke's wife monetized a podcast, which they stated that they didn't want any money, but it was monetized. They also did something with what do they call it? An ad for a product and so forth like that, which is kind of shocking in itself. Nichol Kessinger's quotations was not there that morning. Well, show us the evidence, please, that is true. So that being said, let's get into the video.
Stop asking about it. She didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't there that morning. She voluntarily cooperated with law enforcement.
Wasn't cooperated. She didn't voluntarily. Well, she came forward, but she knew that Anadarko had come forward to state that Chris Watts was with a female companion. So that just is crap right there.
She provided us all the information.
Her information did not help the investigation. It was just pretty much to make her look better.
I'm not going to tell you where she's at.
We don't care where she's at. We just want you to do your job and look at her properly. Again, I can't state that I'm a professional, that I am better than Michael Rourke, because I'm not. But thousands of other people that are retired police officers, attorneys, doctors, investigators, lawyers, they're the ones that have come forward and said, you need to look at this again, man. I'm just making a video about it.
Stop. Leave me alone.
Because ultimately, she is a victim in ways as...
Hold up. She is not a victim. She put herself there. She knew exactly what she was getting to. The victim or victims are Chris's deceased family. Nichol Kessinger is not a victim.
As well. So
right.
Leave her the hell alone. Like,
right.
I mean, leave y'all alone about it.
People won't leave me alone. So I'm not going to happen.
Leave her alone.
And out of his own mouth, again, was a very clear affirmation of what he had done. She didn't do it. She had nothing to do with it. Leave her alone.
Right. Absolutely.
Hell, I've been accused of accepting bribes from her, the mistress, from her family, not to prosecute her. I'm still waiting for that check. Apparently, I'm getting paid $80,000 not to prosecute her. Kim, let me know when that check comes through.
Yeah, we're putting it towards my student loans.
So wow, that was District Attorney Michael Rourke. And even though that podcast came out months ago with him and his wife and their friend really defending Nichol Kessinger in the Chris Watts case, it is just now getting a bunch of attention.
Yeah, because you found out that you really didn't need to see that, right?
Oh yeah, I found out the hard way. Bella and Celeste were, like I said, 3- and 4-year-old little girls with very long, glowing blonde hair who like.
Do they have long blonde hair?
To run around the living room, dance, sing, and do cartwheels. We knew that because we had some social media posts that Shanann had put on her Facebook page or Instagram, one of them. And so I watched those, and I saw those little girls. And my own daughter at the time was about that same age. Long blonde hair, doing cartwheels in my living room, despite the fact she knows that's a family rule not to. And there was an immediate connection that I felt with those little girls because of my daughter.
Of other people.
I couldn't go watch them be extricated from a oil tank.
That's because of a new video by the YouTuber named Behind
Criminal Minds is fantastic. I would wish that he would do more. This man has done like award-winning quality videos. I definitely hope for the best for that. I haven't seen him post very much, so hopefully things do happen more with that man. Let's continue.
Criminal Minds. It's called Chris Watts, A Deal with the Devil in Search of Justice. I've linked to it below. It's 2 hours long. I watched the whole thing. So that's how I found out about District Attorney Michael Rourke going on his wife's podcast and all those things he said about Nichol Kessinger. She didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't there that morning of the fateful, horrible...
Then show us. That's what would probably shut us up. Show us all the evidence that you've collected. Show us that she's innocent. Until that time, it's going to continue. I'm not the only person that's doing it. Thousands of channels are doing it.
Crimes that Chris Watts committed against his beautiful family. She didn't do it. She had nothing to do with it. Leave her alone. I'm not going to tell you where she's at. And Michael Rourke even said he's been apparently getting $80,000 bribes not to prosecute Nicole. At least that's what the fake rumors are saying online. So you can listen to the entire podcast from the links below. It's called A Survivor's Guide to True Crime. It's really well done. The links are below, and it's getting quite the reaction. The best part of the podcast is talking about the vicarious trauma that law enforcement and other folks can get when they witness true crime scenes, when they try and deal with the crime scene photos. There's a lot in it to unpack. There's a lot of positivity there.
So I want you to talk about it because...
And again, with my videos, I'm not saying all the law enforcement sucked at their job. I'm not stating that. I'm saying that there are some irregularities that some officers and investigators did not do. And I'm not taking it from what I know because I don't know, but hundreds, if not thousands of investigators that are retired, still on the force, doctors, lawyers, and all that stuff have come forward to me and other people that I know when it comes to YouTubers and have said, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. That was wrong. They should have done this. They should have done that. I'm just going off of by these, and I'll literally go to their Facebook, not Facebook stalk them, but I'll see. Okay, is this person who they say they are? Yeah, this person's a doctor. This person's been in law enforcement for 30 years. Like you can see the credits or the accreditation of these people. So it's not just blowing smoke.
It's one of your most memorable cases.
Just don't make me say his name.
All right.
Because I refuse to do that. I refer to this now as the Frederick homicide case, triple homicide.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it was a quadruple homicide. It was the Watts murders. And, why aren't you going to say his name? He didn't do anything to you. It'd be like the Ruseks saying, I don't want it. The Ruseks should not be having to say his name. You...
The Frederick triple murder happened in August of 2018, and it started off with not a lot of notoriety, and really the long and the short of it was Shanann had gone on a work trip to Phoenix with some of her colleagues. She came home from the airport the night of August 13th of 2018, and we know
she should have been there by between 10:30 and 11 o'clock, give or take. Her flight was late, which caused her to be coming home the next following day.
Now had a discussion with the defendant about their marital future. In the very early morning hours of her return from the airport, she and her 4-year-old and 3-year-old daughter go missing. The defendant...
But does it make sense that, Shanann states that, you're never going to see the girls again, so let me murder you and do the same thing to my girls? Does that make sense? She threatened you to take them away, but instead you take them away by your own hand? Does that make sense?
I'm going to continue to refer to him as the defendant, is one of the first, but not the first, to call law enforcement to notify them of their disappearance. He is seen through local media channels standing on his front porch, begging and pleading, and I put that in air quotes, for them to be returned safely, trying to find information, wanting them back, talking about how difficult it is to sleep and to eat, knowing that they have disappeared. And it struck particularly our experienced law enforcement agents very oddly. And
it struck me oddly. I'm watching it happen on the news, and I don't know if it was live or just like the Nick segment. Right. And you got home in the middle of it. I remember I'm standing at the back of the couch. I was like, oh, he did it. There was nothing there.
We knew that Chris did this. We could tell from his face, his mannerisms. The funny thing is we say the same thing about NK. We say the same exact stuff that we knew that Chris Watts did it about NK, and yet nothing has been done about NK.
Within a couple of days, he has brought into the Frederick Police Department, is interviewed by detectives and agents from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and after a few hours of some very good interrogation, ultimately admits that he is responsible for their death.
But some people are glomming on to the hypocrisy, the hubris. I see a lot of hubris and hear a lot of hubris when I listen to this podcast.
I could definitely listen to books on tape from her. I could definitely just sit back and be like, oh yeah, okay. She's got a very soothing voice.
And you'll see what I mean. And of course, prosecutors have to have a certain amount of, I don't want to say arrogance, they have to have a certain amount of chutzpah, I'd say, to get in there and do their jobs. But at the same time, it's important to listen to your constituents as well. The DA is going to talk about not being a fan of true crime or not consuming true crime podcasts and all that stuff.
Of course.
Well, thank you for coming down to our program.
Thanks for having me on the program.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We have 2 questions left.
2 questions.
Yep.
I already know the answer. Do you consume true crime?
No.
That's all I do. That's my entire job. My life is true crime.
Outside of work. So,
Outside of work.
because this is Survivor's Guide to True Crime, we have to know, do you listen to true crime podcasts?
He does not.
I do not. And
Weird.
I love you both. I'm not going to listen to yours because I don't.
Does he really though? You can't tell me he doesn't a little bit. I'm hypothetically thinking that he might check here and there. I think he does, but who knows?
I don't listen to them.
I mean, we don't want to listen to ourselves talk either. So it's okay.
I don't.
I don't
In
like
all
talking
seriousness,
about
I
my
don't. And Kim knows the answer to this. I don't come home and read true crime books. I don't come home and read fictional stories about crime or those kinds of things for a variety of reasons. But most notably, this is all I do every day. I go to work and I read police reports and I read charging documents and I read victim impact statements. I don't need to do it at home.
Amen.
And maybe 1A, if that's reason 1A is I don't
How lawyer of you.
need to. What's that?
You're right. How lawyer of you.
Oh, I got it.
Response.
The answer to your question is it depends.
Okay.
But the other reason, I don't know from a prosecutor standpoint if the true crime story that's being put out has been authorized by the victim or if the victim has participated. And if it hasn't, I am not going to consume that out of respect for that victim and his or her choices. And yeah, I'm just not going to do it because I'm not going to allow someone to monetize a victim suffering for my own
But yet his wife's podcast is monetized.
entertainment value.
All the snaps.
Good answer. Good answer.
It must have taken some doing for his wife to get him on here. He recorded this podcast last year, April 2023. And then in June, I also saw he did a TED Talk. So even though he said he had stopped doing interviews for a while, he stopped talking about the Watts case, he even refused to say Chris Watts' name. Obviously, he's getting back into talking about it, at least in a good way, to try and help law enforcement deal with their own trauma and not stuff it like decades ago, like 25 years or more ago, how he describes this horrible crime against an 11-year-old boy who was found basically frozen. I won't get into gory details, I'll let you listen to it over there, but how it really impacted him, his first trauma response, vicarious trauma, and he was told just get back in there and deal with it. He was given a stick of gum and told just get back in there, feelings be damned. So there's a lot of positivity in this podcast, but some folks are screaming hypocrite and calling out the podcast for other reasons as well. First off, even though Michael Rourke is not a fan of true crime podcasts, he kind of gets in there. He makes fun of Keith Morrison of Dateline NBC, the stylized podcast and crime shows of today with the music we like to put underneath our voices and all that stuff. And Rourke talks about not being a fan of, monetizing people's pain. These monetized podcasts focused on true crime, and he talks about, in essence, monetizing the victim's pain. Well, ironically, right before they start talking about the Chris Watts case in this podcast, there's like a minute-long advertisement.
But did you know that it's also Adaptogen April?
Say what?
Do you know what an adaptogen is, Kim?
I understand all of those words separately.
So adaptogens are essentially some type of compound, botanical, that goes into your body and helps your body deal with stress. It's non-toxic, non-specific, and normalizing. So what it does is it helps regulate your stress hormones. And
I see nothing wrong with advertisements. I believe the worker is due their pay. Everything it takes to run a podcast, people don't realize, especially the really nice podcasts. All this equipment, these lights, these cameras, these MacBooks, the editing software, the time it takes to research. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes. I believe people who run podcasts, people who work on Dateline, NBC, whomever, law enforcement, everyone deserves to be paid for their time. That doesn't mean they're profiting off of the person's pain. It just means that's their job. That's what they do. But the irony is, this podcast, Survivor's Guide to True Crime, an interview-style podcast hosted by victims advocates Kimberly Corbin Rourke, that's Michael's wife. They have a great story about how she was a victim when she met him. They go way back. It's really well done.
Normally, the outcome of that was a split. I mean, one parent wanted the death penalty.
Then we find out later down that both parents wanted the death penalty.
Other Shanann's father wanted us to make sure that this defendant never saw the light of day. And ultimately, he did plead guilty to everything we charged him with in exchange for not seeking the death penalty.
So it sounds like he's saying Shanann's mother wanted Chris to get the death penalty, which is a little reversed. I don't know if he got it flipped in his mind. I thought we were always led to believe that...
We've heard so many rumors that both parents didn't want it. Then one parent wanted it, which was the husband, Frankie Jr. or Frankie Sr. And then we heard it switch around that Sandy wanted it. Like, we don't know what's from up and down, and we investigate as much as we can. We can't still figure it out. But he should be on death row. Why are we leaving these guys to life in prison? Yeah, we want them to think about it and think about what they've done, but we're just hiding the inevitable of their judgment.
Shanann's mom and dad, especially her mom, wanted to spare Chris's life. Well, this was especially before she heard the horrible details of Chris's confession in February 2019. But Rourke talks about seeing those crime scene photos. He only got 3 or 4 in, and he was like, I don't know, a black tunnel. He felt like he was going to pass out and throw up, and he couldn't do it anymore. And this is when they turn to talking about true crime sleuths. They want to play detective from home. They feel like they're part of the case. Now, Rourke did say that Shanann's family has been traumatized by producers who want to do Lifetime movies.
That, I think, is wrong. Making movies about it. They don't need to make a movie about what had happened. We just want to find the evidence that Nichol Kessinger was there that morning. Stop making movies about it.
Reporters who want a soundbite from her mom. This is where Rourke started talking about a YouTuber in Scotland. He doesn't name him, but he said he requests records from the DA's office that Rourke says he refuses to release. I didn't put that part in. I'll let you go listen to those details. But he said the demand from the public for open records was crushing. Rourke's office made a link available through ShareFile, so many of us were able to download that. The number of people who downloaded the case files and info is stunning. Rourke said we're talking about multiple tens of thousands of downloads. And then you hear this of disgust, almost as if anyone who wanted to see the Chris Watts files, discovery, listen to interviews, read the discovery itself, see the photos, of course not the horrible photos. They're not going to release those really graphic ones like in the Gannon Stout case. I don't know how those got released. But just to learn about the crime, it was kind of like, almost condescending in certain ways. Although they did realize, look, a lot of us just want to know why this crime happened. And I believe it was Rourke's wife who rightly said, no matter how much we can read in the discovery, we won't see the why. We won't have that moment that is like, oh, that's the reason. That's where he flipped. That's why he did this.
You have all of the media coverage. And, this is one thing we talk about with true crime sleuths is that they'll want to go on and play detective from home. And Shanann's entire profile is all public. And so you have countless hours of videos, pictures, posts, nuances, all kinds of things that they can go through, and they feel like they are part of the case.
Don't think I'm part of the
When
case.
that happens, what does that do? I mean, to you as the prosecutor or the head of the office, what are some things that people who are constantly doing this can take away from it?
That happened, like I said, August 13th of 2018. It is now early 2023. Every single day since that homicide, Shanann's family has been tortured, re-victimized, traumatized by producers who want to do Lifetime movies and by reporters who want to scoop the rest of the country by getting a soundbite from Shanann's mom. Let me back up one step. In this case, it was a fairly short prosecution in that there wasn't a year-long investigation and a ton of follow-up interviews. So, but we still had 4 or 5, maybe 6,000 pages of reports and cell phone downloads, photographs, all of those kinds of things. The demand from the public, once his case was resolved, for open and complete access, either through Criminal Justice Records Act, FOIA requests, in Colorado, it's called the Colorado Open Records Act, was crushing. I have an office of 80 employees, and I bet if we would have done this any other way, all 80 of my employees would have been responding to nothing but these requests. So we had to make the choice of making the files that we would release public available on our website, office website, through a program called ShareFile, where people could simply request it, they'd get the link, and they could download, and they could sit at home and read. The number of people that have done that is stunning.
Yet people tell us that we're obsessed and playing detective. There's thousands of people that see the wrongs in this.
We're talking multiple tens of thousands of downloads worldwide of this horrific crime that I have described.
I wish I could say that's surprising, but I think one of the things that compels people with crimes like this, and I think true crime in general, is they see a crime like this and they go, how on earth does someone do something so heinous? And I think a large percentage of the population that consumes true crime, they consume it because they're trying to understand. But I think that the thing to remember is there is no excuse. There is no, how did someone get this way? You're not going to read this file and do anything other than vicariously traumatize yourself, basically. But people want to try to understand. For clarity, that avenue has been investigated. It is closed. Period. That's it.
Period.
So stop asking about it.
Stop asking about it. She didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't there that morning. She voluntarily cooperated with law enforcement. She provided us all the information. I'm not going to tell you where she's at. Stop. Leave me alone.
Because ultimately, she is a victim in ways as well. With that. So leave her the hell alone. I mean, leave y'all alone about it. Leave her alone.
And out of his own mouth, again, was a very clear affirmation of what he had done. She didn't do it. She had nothing to do with it. Leave her alone.
Right. Absolutely.
But Rourke had said in April of 2023, when he was recording this podcast, the most recent email he had just gotten was a week prior to that podcast, demanding that Nichol Kessinger be prosecuted for murder. He said conservatively, he's gotten 5,000 or 6,000 emails demanding the same thing, the decision-making process without having all the evidence, and he's not going to justify his decision. So that's when he goes into stop asking about it. She didn't have anything to do with it. She wasn't there that morning. She voluntarily cooperated with law enforcement. I am an evidence person too. I got these raw files directly from Weld County DA showing Chris Watts in the driveway. I watched the raw unedited files. I do believe I can see certain points where I believe Chris Watts is on the other side of his truck picking up one of his daughters that probably wandered outside. We all know it's hard to see off in that little corner. I personally never thought I saw Nichol Kessinger walking in the driveway, even though I leave room for people who I respect their decision if they think that's what they see. I don't see that. I couldn't be on a jury and convict Nichol Kessinger for being there based on trying to watch these videos. However, other evidence does make me question things. Like the neighbor Betty, we've gone over her video where she saw some type of truck that looked like Nicole's truck, not the white truck. I believe that's one they rented when they went to the sand dunes. Nichol Kessinger's gray truck potentially parked near the Saratoga Trail home early that morning, August 13th, 2018. Rourke is saying she wasn't there that morning. And we know there was a ping in Frederick, Colorado,
to a phone number in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where Jim is located. She could not give us an alibi. She didn't give an alibi where she was that morning. Between the hours of 6 and 9, she made a joke to her father in an interview that about where she was at 9 o'clock, and they never came back to it. So
that morning, but it was around 6:18 or so. So I get it. Those are evidence markers that I look for.
She deleted messages. How many times do we gotta say this? That's a federal crime in itself. Tampering with evidence in the case when it comes to deleting of messages, emails, and telling her friends to delete it, telling Chris to delete it. That's a felony in itself there. Lying to investigators and law enforcement, that's a felony. Those 3 felonies in itself, she should be doing time. She got nothing.
Rourke said she voluntarily cooperated with law enforcement. She provided us all the information. Well, yes and no. We know Nichol Kessinger came forward that same day prior to Chris Watts confessing, Wednesday, August 15th, 2018. The big question is, why did she come forward and how did she come forward? She came forward with her dad in the park. There was a lot of subterfuge. There was a lot of misdirection. There was a lot of lying, and she wasn't forthcoming. She broke her SIM card. She deleted text messages. So I wouldn't say that's providing us with all the information. These are the reasons sleuths like me are giving Nicole a side eye. That doesn't mean we think she ordered the hit or had any prior knowledge of the crimes.
I don't think she ordered the hit. I think she persuaded him. We still don't know physically if she had her hands on it because they won't investigate her. So we don't know. That's the things that the questions about the what ifs.
I'm not going that far. I'm just saying I don't know. There were things that just stopped. The investigation stopped when Chris Watts pled guilty. And maybe it's okay. Maybe that's where it should have stopped. Now, this is a lot different than Rourke in his original press conference after Chris Watts pled guilty, when he described how Nicole actually hampered the investigation by deleting everything off her phone between her and Chris Watts. And Rourke said, I believe that for the most part, she was forthcoming.
I believe for the most part.
Can you give us a better idea of her role in the investigation? She originally came forward and spoke to investigators on her own volition. Prior to the time, unfortunately, that she came in and spoke with investigators, she had deleted all of the information off of her phone that had any connection between her and Chris Watts. That hampered the investigation. That hampered our ability.
Hampered the investigation. That's a felony.
To get that electronic digital connection between the two. She was interviewed on multiple occasions. I believe that for the most part, she was forthcoming in the course of those investigations.
For the most part. What about the other part?
We don't have any reason to believe that she had any prior knowledge or involvement in the death of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I think that's the best way to answer that.
But at this point, Rourke seems fed up. By last year, he said, I'm not going to tell you where she's at. Now, I don't blame him for that.
We don't care where she's at. We just want her to be interrogated. I could care. I actually know where she's at, but I don't care. She's got friends, and those friends talk. Just saying, and have come forward to me. But again, that's the problem, is I don't care who she's with now, who she's with, or who she's been with, and I just want her interrogated. I don't care who her new husband and boyfriend are, and if she had, like, I found out she doesn't have children. Like, get off that bandwagon, and let's figure out what she was doing then, not now. Who cares about what she's doing now?
Of course, there are some people out there that they can get amped up. They can watch things online. They can watch all these anonymous theories and get all crazed and start driving cross country looking again for some kids being held in a pizza parlor in the basement when there is no basement. I get what he's saying. I get why he would not want to tell anyone where Nicole is. I'm assuming he knows her new. I'm assuming he's kept track of her because he would have to if he were to ever bring any charges against her. But I don't think that...
Which this year is election year.
That means he has to shut his ear to everyone who is just questioning some of her actions. Stop, leave me alone, he says. And one of the women says, because ultimately she is a victim in ways as well, so leave her the hell alone. She didn't do it. She had nothing to do with it. Leave her alone. Nicole could be a victim for sure. She may have had no idea Chris Watts was going to do what he did. Now, people don't see her totally as a victim because of all her lying, because of the way she acted in the interviews, because of her lack of empathy and sympathy for Shanann and her children and their plight, her inappropriate behavior, her self-protection, and all of that. But people just wonder, how was she deemed a victim and a protected witness so quickly before cops even got the lowdown about Nicole at all? Michael Rourke describes that he's been accused of accepting bribes, not to prosecute Nicole. He's still waiting on that check. He's claiming, oh yeah, I've been getting allegedly $80,000 not to prosecute her.
Hell, I've been accused of accepting bribes.
It does make a lot of money. I'm just throwing that out there.
From her, the mistress, from her family, not to prosecute her. I'm still waiting for that check. Apparently, I'm getting paid $80,000 not to prosecute her. Kim, let me know when that check comes through.
Yeah, we're putting it towards my student loans.
Best thing that a secondary supporter can do is simply start by believing what a person says unless and until you are confronted with contrary.
Which we've watched professional detectives, lawyers, attorneys, doctors look at her interviews and say complete BS about her knowledge, her being the victim. Like, they have stated with their opinions, of course, that she's lying. We can't say what she was doing because she doesn't really say what she was doing. The 111-minute phone call, her being at the Lazy Dog with Chris the night before, her whereabouts the morning of the murders, her phone pings, her message, like, that's all messed up.
Very compelling information. Does that make sense?
That was very lawyer of you, but yes, it does.
No, but it's good.
What I really want to say, I mean, let's be honest. What I really want to say is, quit being jerks. Quit trying to think that you on your couch behind an anonymous keyboard knows better than those of us who are professionals in the field, who are always going to do something.
I'm listening to the people that coming forward to me that are the professionals.
Thing that is unethical, immoral, or illegal. We're doing our level best, and quit trying to think that you know better than we do because you have some preconceived notion about law enforcement or prosecutors. That's what I really want people to do.
I'm listening to actual people that are professionals, doctors, lawyers. I mean, how many times do I keep saying it? I have DMs and messages from hundreds of people that are professionals. And they are like, we would have never let Nichol Kessinger walk the way that this happened. They would have interviewed or interrogated her. They would have shown the DNA. They would have, and a lot of them say that they would have convicted her of at least some of it. One guy said she would have been at least in for 10 years. One said 15. One said 5. One said probably a couple years. Like, it depends on who the person is that's going forward in this case.
Let us do our jobs.
It's fair. It's fair.
Just bugs me. Just really bugs me.
Rourke says, believe what a person says until you're confronted with contrary info. If he would just follow those words, we initially may have believed Nichol Kessinger was this, damsel in distress. She was like an Amber Fry type. Oh my goodness, she had no idea. Chris Watts was married. Poor Nicole. But that narrative swiftly changed as many of us got into the case and we could count all the lies. We could count all the red flags. And the question was, is Nicole lying just to salvage her reputation, just to save face? That's one thing. Or was she deleting evidence, misleading law enforcement, not telling them about the secret calculator app? They didn't find it till months later, May 22nd, 2019. I can remember that date. That is the date of the folder of all these Nikki and Chris photos and other stuff that came
where the sentencing had already been done.
Out much later after the initial discovery because it took cops so long to find it because she didn't tell them about it. It was the hidden secret calculator app where they exchanged all these photos and stuff. The big question is, why did Nikki do that? Of course, she didn't want her photos splashed everywhere. She didn't want her name to be mud. She didn't want to have to go into hiding. She didn't want to be known as the scarlet letter A person. I can understand that. If she would have come out and taken her lumps like, oh my goodness, yeah, I knew he was married. I'm sorry, but I had nothing to do with the crime, and just been more remorseful and just less witchy, I think people would have had a lot more sympathy for her. She could have been out and walking around today because the whole viewpoint of Nikki would have been different. This is where the podcast becomes a little bit condescending. Quit thinking behind your keyboard that you know better than the professionals. Go to law school, get a degree, and become a prosecutor. Now, a lot of that I do agree with. Some people, younger people, older people, who knows? They might get inspired by watching cases like this. If they think a person has gotten it wrong or they see injustice, lead them to want to go to law school, become a lawyer. Don't become a prosecutor, they're saying on this podcast, because it doesn't pay much. Become a law enforcement officer. Hopefully people will do it all for the right reasons and they fight for the greater good. Even if we all make mistakes here and there, whether you're a YouTuber or, trying to research these crimes, or you're a prosecutor, you're a defense attorney, what have you, everyone might make little mistakes here and there, but the main goal is to get justice and try and walk in righteousness as much as possible. And if you screw up, you screw up. But it was condescending. I was thinking social media sleuths like us can be very helpful, like in the Savannah Soto case. We watch each other. I watch a lot of different YouTubers, and I've been researching Savannah Soto case and Matthew Guerra since they went missing, since I first heard about it. I made a video on Christmas Day, they were still missing. Then I watched a live video a couple of days later, or what have you, that Mel was doing. This is when the San Antonio Police Department released that surveillance video. And I was watching, a lot of people were commenting saying, whoa, I see something in that surveillance video. Someone's throwing a towel. There must be a third person there. And so that helped me watch it closer because I hadn't necessarily seen that until other viewers, when you have thousands of viewers, people will pick up on things that others do not.
YouTubers can make a difference. Can I say that I have? Not really. I'm just posting it out there because there's a lot of people that don't know about this case. This case bothers me because of me being a family man myself, seeing that this family got annihilated, and it's like you just wanted to help defend them. And plus, with all the negativity that's being discussed about Shanann and the girls and stuff like that, it's just disgusting in itself. And they're blaming the wrong people, and it's ridiculous.
was like, yeah, I do see that towel going like that. So since it became such a big thing, and now San Antonio police have said, well, yeah, we've seen that too. It very well could be a third person. We don't know who all they're interviewing or what have you. At least the cops said, we're looking into that. They didn't say, oh, you silly social media sleuths, there's nothing in that video. Stop being these keyboard warriors and detectives. And perhaps San Antonio police may not have even seen that towel flopping like I didn't see it until viewers brought it to their attention. So there can be this helpful symbiotic relationship that shouldn't be poo-pooed. Law enforcement should never take the stance, or a DA should never take the stance of, don't you worry, I got this. You guys stop being so much into true crime and stop monetizing this pain and stop being voyeurs, and it doesn't need to be that attitude. We could look at it as a community of people all trying to help solve a case, not by giving far-fetched theories, not by bothering victims and their families, having tact, yes, and empathy and sympathy, but all looking at it as a way to help each other. Not like, you're a bother, leave me alone. That's what I think can come of this case. I think the goal is, don't treat every social media sleuth as some idiot out there spouting off all these wild conspiracy theories that couldn't possibly be true. Now, bullied or, harassed or, no, I don't think so.
No, I don't want Nichol Kessinger to be harassed or bullied or anything like that. I just want cops to be like, yeah, these guys are right. We should. And I'm not saying me. I'm saying all the channels that have been doing this, plus the things that I have found here and there. I found a couple of hidden things here and there. But we don't want her to be bullied, harassed, shamed, or whatever. We want her to be investigated properly to where we can find out 100% that if she was innocent or guilty. We can't do that because we just were told that she came to us from her own volition. For the most part, we don't feel like she was involved. For the most part. And we're going to go from there. Like, you can't just go off on by he said, she said things. It takes weeks, months, to almost years to finalize this. I think this case should have gone to trial. Why didn't it go to trial? Because he confessed? Okay, great, he confessed. But let's put the nail on the coffin and actually show that he was there. She needed to be questioned. Like, why?
They're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of emails and thousands of signatures on all these petitions. I don't think it helps to dig your heels in and say, that's it, we looked into her. I'm not going to tell you all the evidence, but we know she didn't do anything, she didn't know anything. That's it,
Then
case
show
closed.
the public.
I think that's a stance that you don't necessarily want to take because it's not listening to your constituents. It's not listening to the public's desires. And indeed, if the investigation had continued into her, they very well could find even more evidence. Nope, she had nothing to do with it. Jim, her friend, admitted, yes, they were here, and here's the proof, or all of that.
Show us.
There's nothing wrong with becoming humble, listening to others. However, in cases like this where people feel there's some kind of injustice, or with me it's just unsurety. I don't know what the heck she was hiding. I only know God knows. And in
Amen.
cases where people see glaring inconsistencies, glaring injustice, I feel like those wrongs will be righted someday. Like you see people who have been incarcerated decades, I can't even imagine, 30 years, and eventually they're exonerated. You know, DNA proves them innocent. Or in the reverse, like cases like I believe O.J. Simpson. I feel like he got away with a crime, but he won't get away with it forever. Eventually he tripped himself up, and he ended up going to jail anyway. Of course not for murder, but he did do a stint in prison. My thing is, God always finds a way to right wrongs and to bring justice. He won't leave it unanswered forever. Maybe God just knows internally if Nicole had nothing to do with nothing. Or if he knows differently, he'll know how to handle it one day. And that's got to be the worst kind of prison if a person is living with guilt, hasn't repented, know they know more than what they're saying. Ugh. That would be worse. But we always just want justice for victims.
Amen.
Check out all the links below, and you can watch all the videos I'm talking about, referencing. You can listen to the whole podcast if you so desire.
So again, that's the biggest thing of why a good amount of good YouTube channels have taken upon this case, have made channels dedicated to this case, that have Watts in the name, because they know what's wrong. They know what they can see. They've spent countless hours. I mean, I've spent hours on this as well. And all we get is, don't worry about it. We got it taken care of. Like, what happened to helping each other out, seeing a different view and so forth like that? And that's why this case hasn't died, is because the NK mysteries and information that we'll probably never know, unfortunately. So for those that are tuning in that still have not found, I saw on a Facebook post today that somebody just jumped on the bandwagon of the NK and the Chris Watts case, and they're watching tons of people. They're watching Christina Randall, and they're watching Anna Elise, and they're watching Plunder. Like, they just introduced themselves into this case. They didn't even know about this case. This case still hasn't reached a lot of people. Some people don't enjoy crime at a different time. Like, I watched crime here and there when I was younger, back when I was like in teens and 20s. I didn't really get into like the first 48 until like the end of my 20s, now my early 30s. And it's very intriguing and very interesting to watch certain cases and how they panned out, and how this person got arrested over here, but this person got away with it. And like, it's just very interesting to watch. So with that being said, for those that are professionals, people that are junior detectives, I wouldn't consider myself a junior detective. I'm just a very concerning bystander that wants to put out content for others to see that could be one day used in something in the future. Who knows? Comment your guys' thoughts down below. Hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe to both channels. Link will be down in the description for Plunder. And again, lovely lady, lovely woman, knows her stuff, has a whole bunch of stuff on other channels. Give her some love by doing the thing, you know. And then subscribe on this channel as well, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So please take care, be safe, and as always, keep nerding on, and we'll see you guys in the next video.